You were referenced several times, not on direct examination by the state, but by your brother's attorney on cross as a co-conspirator. Are you charged in this case?
No.
This isn't your trial, is it?
No.
Is your brother charged with conspiring with you to do a murder?
No.
Is he charged with conspiring with you to plan a murder?
No.
Is he charged with soliciting you to do a murder?
No.
Who is he charged with doing those things with?
I don't think anyone.
Have you had an opportunity to review his indictment in this case?
I have not.
Give you an opportunity to take a look at that document yourself. Who is your brother alleged to have done these crimes with?
Catherine D. Magbanowa.
Were you on the wire in this case, Ms. Adelson?
No.
So when the bump happened, are you familiar with the event I'm referencing as the bump?
I am now.
When law enforcement approached your mother on the street and handed her a piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay, when that occurred, who did your mother call?
I don't know.
Not you, right?
Not me.
Okay. And once your brother found out about the bump, did he call you about it?
No.
Who did he call?
I don't know.
Well, you listened to the calls to authenticate the voices, didn't you?
Just to hear the voices, not to hear the content of the calls.
Okay. And the voices were your brother's voice, right?
But I listened to the calls just to hear who was on them, so I don't know what content they're referencing.
I heard your answer. My question to you now is, your brother's voice was on the calls.
He was on some of the calls I listened to.
Okay. Your mother's voice was on the calls.
She was on some of the calls I listened to.
Did you have any secret meetings with your brother post bump that happened in South Florida?
No.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So while this is not a body language, it is certainly a behavior thing. I'm an attorney. I'm going to go testify in front of somebody and I don't read the charges. That seems that strains rational believability to me. Just it does. And it's going to all these people who do true crime. They're all going to jump on that because that's not normal. I'm an attorney. I know that what I say matters and I'm sitting in front of these people and I'm so prepared with everything else. That strains credibility. She hasn't read that. Her pupils are actually wider now. She has fairly narrow pupils. Usually look at the difference now. So you can see the stress is starting to build up. One of my favorite things is when she hands her the paper. How do you grab a paper usually? But when it's precious or dangerous, both those hands go out and grab it. And that is clearly the case here. We're going to see her when she sees a threat in paper or something that's going to nail her down. We see her do that. That's got nothing to do with guilt or innocence. That's got to do with threat. When you see a threat and you do it, you're indicating that. And it could be something precious too, like a letter from somebody you love who is no longer alive. That would be
like a cup of warm tea on an episode of The Bachelor.
Two hands, yeah. I've never seen an episode of The Bachelor. I'll take your word for it, but I agree. Yeah, I'm sure, because none of us would be on that one. So, but she's not giving anything away for this attorney. She's making the attorney work for it, and the attorney is going to turn on her and make her do it too. When she says, I listened to the calls to hear who's on them, come on. There again, you're straining credibility when you say things like that. And this attorney is probably pushing that to cause her to get to a certain place with the jury. Mark, she does my favorite thing. She becomes suddenly Andrew talking about how he knew Epstein through his girlfriend. But remember him holding his fingers and go, but it's Ghislaine. Right. She's doing that with, I'm listening for their voices, not for the content. Well, especially if it's somebody you love, you're going to listen to the words they're saying, my opinion. So this is a behavior difference. I love when she tells her, I heard your answer. That's not my question. I love when somebody puts somebody on notice that you're not going to get away with that. And Scott, I put this here for you specifically. This attorney, I can sense her feeling just like you. She's on my last nerve. You see that big swallow just before she goes back at her. I love that. You can see that mouth open, and she's after more air now. She's breathing in her chest, in her upper lungs. So here we go. And then is that last thing she said a fading fact? That sure sounded like it to me when he said, "Did you have secret meetings with your brother in South Florida?" No. Sounds a lot like Candace on Dr. Phil. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Speaking of those no's, now this is something that deals with sonics and the audible part of this. When she says no those first two times, and when I say this, I don't mean they're exactly alike. I mean, the two no's at the very beginning are exactly alike. They're the very same. It's almost like they were sampled and they were played twice. They weren't, but that's how close they are. The only difference in the second no, she says, is there's a slight little, when she opens her mouth, you hear just a little tick or a little click. It's nothing she's doing because of something's bothering emotionally or anything. That little click noise just happens to be part of the sound of her mouth opening at that point. Those are so close. I've never heard somebody be able to repeat a sound the very same like that before. And I couldn't believe it. So I took them out and looked at the samples, and you lay them on top of each other. I should put it on here and show you they're the very same. Unbelievable how close they are sonically. Now,
can I point out something?
Yeah.
That's a Grammy-nominated sound engineer saying that, not a body language guy. That's the first thing. So sorry to interrupt you, but it's important.
Sounds too much like forensics to me.
That's true. The forensics panel. That's true. That's true. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I'm getting too much into the sound part of it. But anyway, but the three no's after that with her about her brother, they consecutively get lower in tone and they get longer as they go along. So I think there's something up here. She's got herself separated when they're about her, but when they're about her brother, they're not more relaxed, but they're lower, and they're about a half dB lower sound-wise for any audio guys out there and women as well, because I always get things from them saying, "Oh, if you'll take drop your who sucked all the 300 out of your voice during the thing," because this mic moves a lot. Anyway, so I thought that was fascinating. I've never actually seen or heard that before. It's almost like the same sample twice, those first two no's, but those three next ones after those, that's something's up. I got to be careful what to say. But there's something going on here. I think she knows more about what's happening here than she's letting on. People usually do, and that's probably why they have her up there. Then the impression that she does know more than she's letting on. And this attorney's trying to find out. But something's going on there, I can promise you. Now, what does all this mean? As far as I know, there are no studies or papers on that kind of thing specifically again. But I do have the impression that something's up. I'll leave it there for that. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, when she's talking about just listening to hear what content it is and not looking at and not reviewing the content there. If you were around in the 80s, this is the I read it for the articles argument. When the prosecutor asked, "This isn't your trial, is it?" There's an increase in blink rate almost to a flutter here. It goes from a 21 to about a 58 in blinks per minute. And just continuing to display this mouth open behavior. So, when somebody leaves their lips slightly parted and their mouth is like a little bit open, it's like they're ready to engage in a conversation. So this is often seen as a sign of being open and sincere. And it's kind of like a kid doing this. It's like, I'm listening, I'm ready to talk. And there's, I think, a little more to it, that this gesture can also remind us of innocence and honesty in many ways. If you just think about kids doing this, they often have their mouths just slightly open when they're amazed or when they're learning something new, when they're at their peak of innocence. So when we as adults might accidentally mimic this to try to appear a certain way, it can send a signal that we're being as open and honest as a child might be. And then when she does this little thing to show how much of the clip she listened to, I'm just going to name that. We don't have to keep calling it that, but I'm going to name it to say that I claimed it. I'm sticking my flag on this thing and call it a fragment illustrator, illustrating tiny pieces or fragments of a film, an audio tape, whatever it is. Like she's holding something while she's explaining it. And it often means, we've seen this many times, even if the person isn't openly saying it, that there's a limit of how much they have access to. We saw this in the Bob Lazar interview when he's talking about, I had some access, and you could see the fingers do this little thing. I had some access to that facility, yes. And you could see this limiting gesture right there. I want you to watch during this handover. That was the first thing, Greg, that I saw this morning. Is like, look at this two-handed grasping behavior. But I want you to watch very closely. This clip is about to come back up on your screen again. You'll see no eye contact. She's looking at the documents as she's grabbing them. There's no eye contact up at the attorney. That's going to change in a couple of videos, and it's going to change big time. That's all I got. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So around these two no's that you were pointing towards, Scott, are you charged? No. This isn't your case, is it? No. I mean, Scott, you're getting into some real subtlety there. And I want to get into some subtlety around her shoulder, which is I see the hair moving on one side, which suggests the shoulder, there's a tiny, tiny single shoulder shrug on both of those no answers to go along with your, bizarreness of the sonic structure there. There's something tiny going on there. I'm sure if you blow that up and you put a grid over the top of it, you'll be able to see a micro shrug, but it's enough to move the hair on one side, just enough for me to detect it. So could be some uncertainty around those no's. It's possible. It doesn't seem credible that you would only listen to a portion of the call, unless that's what the police said. Oh, we're just going to pay you a portion of this. Just tell us who you're hearing. Or unless you said, actually, I don't want to hear the whole of this. And there may be some reasons why you go, I don't want to hear the whole of this. I don't want to hear anything about this. But if it's your family, I mean, if it were me, so it might be just about me, because, on the whole, I'm making up this whole world in front of me. And so most stuff inevitably turns out to be about me. But if it were me, I'd be like, no, keep playing because I want to know what's going on here. This is, I want to know what's going on. And if I told them to stop, because I don't want to know what's going on, or maybe they withheld it. I don't know. Oh, but there is one little factor in there, which is when she gives the rationale for why she only heard the snips of it, before her rationale, there's a vocal click before that. Now, I had said at the start, vocal clicks seem to be in her baseline, but it turns out we haven't heard one of those for a long time now. They've disappeared out of what seemed to be the baseline at the start. So there's definitely something going on around this. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something going on here. That's all I got on that one. Let's have another.
I think those vocal clicks that we hear when people do that, that's their way of getting attention or saying, I have something to say, not by saying, I have something to say and talking, but I think it brings attention to what they're saying. It puts some kind of importance for them behind it to say, as you see people when they sit back and talk to us from their minimal depth of knowledge about something, they'll go, I think, but I could be wrong, but that's what it seems
so I
like
think
to me.
I do know some people who use it as the signal for, look at me, I'm about to speak. So you don't miss their first few words. It's a way of going, hey, I'm about to, and sometimes nobody looks and they're like, and they got, so they don't start into their sentence because their click it's a subtle way of gaining attention sometimes, and it doesn't work every time. I do think at other times it's an absolutely unconscious way of showing that there's some worry about what's to come or what just went.
And there are places that choose. Go ahead.
Sorry, Greg.
Go ahead, please.
We used to call it an observation invitation. All of those behaviors of like somebody goes, okay, like anything like that to like, let's bring attention here because I'm about to pontificate.
And to me, it is also used as well. That's exactly the same thing. And you see it in the Let Me Tell You guys. They go, do all that kind of stuff to follow it. Yeah, it's a separator for sure. I think we're all on the same one.
Yeah.
I think I've found this woman's adapter and nobody's seen it yet. And I didn't see it for a couple of videos from now, so I haven't brought it up yet. So I'll be talking about it. So I don't think anybody's seen it. See if you can find it, because when I pointed out to go, oh, holy smokes!
Good. That's a good one.
It's tiny, but I think when you see it, it'll make sense, and I'll explain why as we go through.
Cool. Can't wait.
That's a tie. Sorry, fellas.
One of those tape replays.
You were referenced several times, not on direct examination by the state, but by your brother's attorney on cross as a co-conspirator. Are you charged in this case?
No.
This isn't your trial, is it?
No.
Is your brother charged with conspiring with you to do a murder?
No.
Is he charged with conspiring with you to plan a murder?
No.
Is he charged with soliciting you to do a murder?
No.
Who is he charged with doing those things with?
I don't think anyone.
Have you had an opportunity to review his indictment in this case?
I have not.
Give you an opportunity to take a look at that document yourself. Who is your brother alleged to have done these crimes with?
Catherine D. Magbanowa.
Were you on the wire in this case, Ms. Adelson?
No.
So when the bump happened, are you familiar with the event I'm referencing as the bump?
I am now.
When law enforcement approached your mother on the street and handed her a piece of paper?
Yes.
Okay. When that occurred, who did your mother call?
I don't know.
Not you, right?
Not me.
Okay. And once your brother found out about the bump, did he call you about it?
No.
Who did he call?
I don't know.
Well, you listened to the calls to authenticate the voices, didn't you?
Just to hear the voices, not to hear the content of the calls.
Okay. And the voices were your brother's voice, right?
But I listened to the calls just to hear who was on them, so I don't know what content they're referencing.
I heard your answer. My question to you now is, your brother's voice was on the calls.
He was on some of the calls I listened to.
Okay. Your mother's voice was on the calls.
She was on some of the calls I listened to.
Did you have any secret meetings with your brother post bump that happened in South Florida?
No.
If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.
Again with